What is the kindest thing you've done or seen? I was selling my bike when I was a teen for $30. Got a hit and set up a location. Ended up being greeted by two kids on a single bike, one on the pegs, and the kid with the bike bought his friend my bike so they could ride together. Now that is a bro right there. Love hearing stuff like this. Thanks for sharing. I broke my foot while bouldering a week into my semester abroad. I had never been out of the country before, so I was absolutely panicking. A total stranger came right over after I fell, recorded important info for the paramedics, and spent the next 10 or so minutes while waiting for the ambulance asking me questions about my studies and my research. I'd mentioned I was a student. He asked such thoughtful questions and was so kind and able to calm me down even though I was absolutely freaking out. I wish I could be as chill and amazing as this guy. When my wife gave birth to our firstborn, the woman she had shared a ward with while in the early stages of labor had a stillbirth. After giving birth, rather than spending time bonding with her newborn, my exhausted wife gave me our son and spent 3 hours comforting and consoling this woman. Something about the bond of mothers seemed to connect them. The woman and her husband have since become close family friends and had 2 beautiful children after this. They still credit the support we, mostly my wife, gave them in the period of time after the stillbirth. Especially in those 3 hours. With helping them get through their grief. The kindest act I've ever seen. Done by the kindest person I've ever met. Your wife is a keeper. You definitely should marry her. I reached out to dozens of people my dad has known and told me stories about throughout the years, cousins, relatives, coworkers, groomsmen, friends throughout his adult years, friends from childhood, and even from his recently deceased dad before he passed away. I asked them if they could share a memory or picture they had of him. I was overwhelmed by the responses. So many people wrote back. Even people I had missed but had heard about it through the grapevine. It was so kind of those people to dig through their archives and spend the time to do that. I compiled them all into a box and gave it to him for his 60th birthday. My dad and the rest of our family all really enjoyed reading the letters and seeing long-lost photographs. What a great idea. With COVID-19, my mom's birthday party may be cancelled. I may do this instead. Make a PowerPoint and have a video party for her. In 6th grade, it was 2 stops away from my stop. A man was just laying on the sidewalk. Our bus was stopped for a long time. I noticed the bus driver wasn't on the bus and I looked outside and the guy was just laying there. Our bus driver is RLLY nice, so her being the nice lady she is, she rushes out of the bus. Check his pulse and calls an ambulance. The bad part was some people on my bus were talking shite saying, I bet he overdosed on something, and almost after that my mom comes to pick me up. Turns out the next day our bus driver said, the man from yesterday didn't overdose. He went into diabetic shock, or I think that's what she said, but she basically saved someone. That's awesome she did that. But you know, it doesn't matter if it was diabetic shock or an overdose. They still needed help and she did it. An older gentleman tried to ship an envelope to his grandson from a shipping company I worked at. The way he acted and the things he said threw up too many red flags in my head. So, against company policy. I opened the envelope after he left and inside of it was 5 figures in cash. I called the cops and told them to get in touch with the man and try to figure out what was going on. As it turns out, someone had called the older man and said his grandson was in the hospital and if they didn't send the money he would get a surgery that was badly needed. The older man couldn't get in touch with the grandson by phone, so he panicked and sent the money to the address they provided. We were able to stop it from happening and get the money back to him. He said it was basically his life savings. The story kind of got big and the news ran a story on it, and apparently it's a scam that happens to a lot of old people. We started this kind of club to reach out to nursing homes and try and educate people about it. And a lot of people were not aware of anything like that happening. A lot of good came from me just being nosy. I was a server for a while and my coworker was pretty new. They'd sent most staff home because it was late, and how it always happens, we got super busy. My coworker was struggling and got a terribly rude table. They didn't seem to understand that they weren't the only customers in the restaurant and we were understaffed. They made her cry and have a meltdown. We've all been there. So I took over the table and, after they left, put $15 on the table so she would see she got a tip from the table. I never told her I put money on the table for her. And seeing her confidence grow from that was what I was hoping for. Her response after was something like, "Wow. I must not be as terrible of a server as I thought I was. Maybe I'm getting the hang out it after all. That is seriously the nicest thing. My cold server heart is so warm right now." I was talking to some random guy in the bar, and he said he was having surgery the next day and didn't have someone to pick him up after. I ended up driving him there, sitting with him before he went back, calling his parents when he got out, sitting with him in recovery, picking up his post-op meds, driving him home, and making sure he was okay before I left. Never saw him again. And that's okay. I've been reading through the whole thread, and this is the one that really got me. It's not easy to find someone to be this person when you need it. Even if you have friends and family. That you did this for a stranger really touches me. And that you didn't become best buds afterward is nice too. Because it shows the kind of person you are to a community. You saw a need and an opportunity to be kind. And you stepped up to it. Even when it must have taken most of a day at least. And a considerable amount of responsibility on your part. I'm glad there are people like you out there. I saw a neighbor boy practicing his jump shot into some tree branches in his front yard. I had a portable hoop in the back from when I moved in that was taking up space. So I walked over and offered him the hoop for free. I only lived there for the next year or two. But it was almost non-stop basketball dribble next door after that. I saw him, his sister, parents, aunts, uncles, even a grandparent or two all take a couple shots at the hoop over time. It felt good to know his family got so much use out of it. I was 16, driving over to my girlfriend's house on rainy Saturday afternoon. There was a man biking in front of me, and when he went to get onto the sidewalk, he completely ate shit. I pulled into the closest driveway and saw that his bike was mangled and his arm was bleeding. I threw his bike in my trunk, gave him my old sweatshirt for his bloody arm, and drove him home. When I dropped him off, he gave me his card. Turned out he was a dentist at a local research hospital. Well, fast forward to when I'm 19 and the same man took out my wisdom teeth for free as part of a research experiment. Not sure if there was actually an experiment that they needed wisdom teeth for. But just goes to show that good things happen to good people. You got cloned, bro. My dad ran into an old high school friend he hadn't seen in years. He learned that the man had cancer. That he had no family except a son in college in another state, and that he was basically dealing with it all by himself. So my dad started taking him to his appointments and out to lunch. He even organized how to take his crazy number of prescriptions, since it was confusing to figure out when to take them when they all had different times and requirements. There were about 18 of them, I think he said. Then, when his friend died, my dad helped his son do all of the end-of-life arrangements. My dad is my hero. He is such a giving person, and I strive to be like him. Sometimes when my sister is sleeping or napping, I plug her phone in to charge, so when she wakes up it'll be 100%. One day after work, I noticed an older lady struggling with her groceries at the bus stop. I offered to carry her bags and ended up walking with her to her house. The kindest thing anyone has done for me actually happened just the other day. I was explaining to one of my friends from choir that, since I'm no longer working, I can't afford to sign up for the summer. She immediately offered to pay for my term and wouldn't take no for an answer. Before I could finish thanking her, she messaged me saying that she already signed me up and paid because that's what choir moms do. There was also that time 4 of my colleagues pooled their money and got me a massage. I am truly blessed. I was at an arcade one time and I saw this kid play a claw machine. The kid was trying to get a Batman plush and failed to win it. Once the kid left, I gave it a try and I managed to win the Batman plush. I found the kid who wanted to win the Batman plush and I gave him the Batman plush. He was so happy to have it, and it made me feel good that I made someone's day. I worked at Starbucks. One morning around 6:30 a customer came in and I asked how she was doing. "Oh, it's already crazy and I haven't even started," she replied. To make her day go a little easier, I gave her her coffee order for free. A few days later, I was having a terrible morning. 6:30 and already chaos. She came in, asked me how I was doing, and I said the above. A couple hours later, she came back with a gift bag for me. Inside was a nice bottle of wine. We'd both had bad mornings. And someone's small gesture had made the day just a little bit nicer. Today you. Tomorrow me. I was breaking down in the middle of the street and sitting on the sidewalk. A stranger girl came and patted on my shoulders, kept talking about random stuff, trying to make me laugh and calm, and she managed to do so. It was the most wholesome thing that ever happened to me.